Ma'am, you'll need to order some or give the table to a paying customer. The elderly woman looked up from the menu, but her eyes did not seem to focus on Victoria Vance, the manager standing over her. I only need another minute, she said. Victor folded her arms. The Copper Lantern Cafe would be crowded soon, and the woman had been sitting alone at tables without ordering. Her black coat hung loosely from her shoulders. Her gray hair had not been brushed carefully. Her face was pale, her eyes swollen, and one hand trembled against the menu. To Victor, she looked like someone who had come in from the cold, hoping no one would notice. She had no money. This isn't a warming shelter, Victor said quietly. I'm asking you to leave. At the next booth, Lucas Reed stopped cutting his daughter's breakfast in half. Lucas was 40, a widowed, single father who had raised 8-year-olds alone since her mother died 3 years early. 8 months ago, he had also lost the refrigeration job he had held for 13 years since then. Delivery shifts and small repair calls had barely kept a roof over their heads. That morning, he had $18.60 left after buying gas. The single breakfast skillet between him and was already a luxury: 2 eggs, a little sausage potatoes, 2 pieces of toast. Lucas had told Chloe he was not hungry, so she would eat without worrying. Chloe sat across from him with a yellow, knitted scarf wrapped twice around her neck. She had been watching the elderly woman ever since she entered. Dad, Chloe whispered. She's shaking across the aisle. The woman slowly pushed back her chair. I understand, she told Victor. Her voice carried no anger, only exhaustion. She buttoned her coat with unsteady fingers and turned toward the door. Chloe looked at Owen. She can have some of mine. Owen watched the woman take one slow step, then another. He knew what it felt like to leave a place while pretending humiliation did not hurt. Ma'am, he called. The woman stopped. Lucas pulled an empty chair toward their table. You can sit with us. Victor's expression tightened. Mr. Bishop, she hasn't ordered. Lucas met her eyes. She's sitting at a table that's already paid for. The elderly woman looked from Lucas to Chloe. You don't have to do that, she said. I know that answer made her hesitate. Lucas raised his hand toward a passing server. Could we get one more bowl, please? Victor stepped closer. You cannot turn one meal into a free service arrangement. We're not asking for another meal. Lucas divided the skillet carefully. He placed a small portion in Chloe's bowl, a smaller one in his own, and the rest in the empty bowl. Chloe moved one piece of toast from her plate to the woman's. Then she stood, unwound the yellow scarf from her neck, and walked around the table. You can borrow this, she said, until your ride comes. The woman stared at this for the first time. Something broke through the numbness in her face. My ride, Chloe nodded seriously. My dad says people shouldn't wait outside when it's this cold. Lucas had never said those exact words, but he did not correct her. The woman allowed Chloe to place the scarf around her shoulders. It was warm from the child's neck. Thank you, she whispered. Chloe climbed back into the booth. My name is Chloe. The woman touched the edge of the scarf. Eleanor. Lucas pushed the bowl toward her. I'm Lucas. He had no idea that the woman, wearing his daughter's scarf, still controlled the company that had ruined his professional name. Eleanor looked at the small portions in front of them. You were sharing this already. We still are, Lucas said. She noticed the water in his glass. No coffee, no second plate. No side order. She noticed how he moved the larger share of potatoes toward Chloe when the girl was not looking. You should eat, Eleanor told him. So should you, for several seconds. None of them moved. Then Chloe picked up her fork. It gets cold fast. That earned the faintest smile from Eleanor. They began eating outside. Late November wind pushed dry leaves along Maple Avenue. Inside the cafe smelled of coffee, butter, and cinnamon. Eleanor took one bite, then lowered her fork. Her eyes filled. Chloe glanced at Owen, unsure whether she had done something wrong. Lucas shook his head gently. Eleanor pressed a napkin to her mouth. I'm sorry, she said. You don't have to be, Lucas answered. She looked toward table 7, the one Victor had forced her to leave. My son used to sit there. Lucas waited. He loved the blueberry pancakes here, Eleanor said, even when he was old enough to. They weren't very good. Chloe looked. They look good in the picture. Eleanor laughed once, but the sound collapsed into a breath. Today would have been his. Lucas understood he did not ask how her son died. He did not tell her everything happened for a reason. He did not reach for a polished sentence. That would make grief easy for everyone except the person carrying it. He simply moved the napkin holder closer. Chloe touched Eleanor's sleeve. My mom died too. Owen's hand paused on the table. Chloe rarely said it first. Eleanor looked at her. How old were you? I'm sorry. Chloe nodded. Dad still makes her pancakes on her birthday. Lucas looked down. They're usually burned. Chloe added. Eleanor smiled through her tears. For the first time in 10 days, she felt something besides the silence of her own house. Then a sharp electronic alarm sounded near the counter. A display on the refrigerated dessert case flashed red. Victor hurried over and pressed a button. The alarm stopped. Lucas turned his seat. The display still read 48 degrees. A bead of water ran from the lower edge of the case and collected on the tile. The compressor made a rough, uneven hum. Lucas listened. Victor, he called. She looked back, already irritated. That case needs to be checked. It does that sometimes. The temperature is too high. It was opened during the morning delivery. Lucas glanced at the fogged glass. It's been warm longer than that. Victor walked toward him. You're here as a customer. Yes, then let the staff handle it. I'm trying to help you handle it. Her eyes dropped to his faded delivery jacket. What qualifies you to diagnose our equipment from a booth 13 years in commercial refrigeration? Victor gave a thin smile, and now. Lucas understood the question beneath the question. Now he delivered packages. Now he repaired washing machines in apartment basements. Now people saw the work jacket and assumed the job he had lost proved he had never deserved it. Now I'm telling you, the dairy and cream products in that case need to be checked with a calibrated thermometer. Victor shook her head. You are not authorized to touch company equipment. I haven't touched it. He pointed toward the condensation. Move the perishable food to the walk-in cooler. Put a hold on anything that has been above safe temperature. Call your refrigeration contractor. We have procedures, then follow them. Chloe sat very still. She had seen adults speak to her father this way before they heard the words delivery driver, and stopped listening to everything else. A young server named Hannah stepped from behind the counter. I can check it, she said. Victor turned sharply and said, It's fine. Hannah looked at the display. It says 48 because the door was opened. Lucas spoke quietly. Check the milk near the center. Victor stared at him, then at the customers who had begun watching. Fine, she said. We'll prove it's fine. Hannah sanitized the probe and tested a carton of milk. She waited 47. The room changed. Lucas stood, but remained several feet from the case. Move the food, mark the time. Don't serve anything from that unit until the contractor clears it. Victor opened her mouth. Then the alarm sounded again. Hannah began moving the products. Another employee joined her. Lucas sat back down. He had not opened a panel or pretended to know the exact failure. He had recognized the warning and asked the staff to verify it. Eleanor watched him carefully. You knew what that sound meant. She said I knew what it could mean. There's a difference. A big one? Lucas looked toward the case. A warning tells you to stop and verify. It doesn't give you permission to guess. A man entered the cafe wearing a dark wool coat. He was in his late 60s, silver-haired, and visibly relieved when he spotted Eleanor. Mrs. Richard. Victor froze. The man crossed the room quickly. I'm sorry. There was nowhere to park, and I had to circle the block. It's all right, Arthur. Victor stared at the woman in the yellow scarf. Then her eyes shifted to an old black and white photograph near the register. The photograph showed a much younger Eleanor Vance standing beside her husband in front of the first Silver Pine Market. The name beneath it was printed in gold. Eleanor and Richard Vance. Founders, Silver Pine Foods. Copper Lantern Cafe was owned by Silver Pine. Every paycheck in the building carried Eleanor Vance's company name, Mrs. Richard. Victor said, I didn't recognize you. Eleanor looked at her for a long moment. That was the problem. Victor took a step forward. I thought, yes. Eleanor said you did. The cafe went silent. I was trying to protect the dining experience. Victor said. Eleanor touched Chloe's scarf. From what Victor had, no answer. from a grieving old woman sitting alone. I didn't know who you were. How many people have you sent back into the cold because you thought they couldn't afford to matter? Victor's lips parted, but nothing came out. Eleanor did not demand that she be fired. She looked toward the refrigerated case. Preserve the camera footage from this morning. Keep the temperature logs, alarm history, and maintenance records for that unit. Victor swallowed. Yes, ma'am. Call the licensed contractor. Document what they find. Yes, ma'am. Eleanor turned to Hannah. Thank you for checking. Hannah looked stunned. Arthur pulled out his phone and began making notes. Lucas gathered the empty bowls. You don't need to do that, Victor said quickly. He looked at her. I know. Eleanor stood and began unwinding Chloe's scarf. Chloe reached across the table. You can keep it until you're home. Eleanor held it against her chest. Then I'll make sure it gets back to you. Lucas reached into his jacket and handed her a simple business card. Lucas Reed, appliance repair and refrigeration support. His phone number was printed beneath the name. Eleanor read it. Something about the name tugged at her memory, but grief had blurred the past several months into gray corridor. Thank you. Mr. Bishop for breakfast. Lucas asked for seeing me. Chloe smiled. We saw you because you were right there. Eleanor looked at the child. Yes, she said. I suppose I was. Arthur helped her into a black sedan parked at the curb. As the car pulled away, Lucas returned to the table and counted the remaining bills in his wallet. Chloe watched him. Are we in trouble? No. Did we spend too much? Lucas looked at the empty skillet. We spent what we chose to spend, Chloe considered. She really a bit? That's what the picture said. Chloe looked pleased she still needed my scarf. Lucas smiled. Yes, she did by that afternoon. An independent contractor had inspected the refrigerated case of failing relay, had kept the unit from holding a safe temperature for nearly 2 hours because the food had been moved quickly. The cafe avoided serving products that should have been discarded and prevented a loss of almost $5,000. The contractor also found that similar alarms had been cleared 3 times in the previous without a complete service visit. At 3:15, Eleanor sat in the back of her car. Outside the home she had barely left in 10 days. Chloe's yellow scarf remained around her shoulders. The house beyond the window looked exactly as it had that morning. Curtains closed, lights off. Nathan's unopened birthday cards still waited on the hall table because Eleanor had not been able to throw them away. Her son would have been 49. For days, visitors had entered that house with documents. Approve this sign that transfer authority. Lucas had asked for an empty bowl. Eleanor called Claire Hayes, Silver Pines General Counsel. I need you to verify someone who... Lucas Reed, what am I verifying? His refrigeration credentials, his work history, anything connected to Silver Pine. There was a pause. Was he involved in the cafe and he prevented it from becoming worse? I'll look, and Claire, yes. Do it quietly. 2 hours later. Claire called back. Her tone had changed. Lucas Reed worked for Silver Pine for 13 years. Eleanor sat straighter. In what division? Cold storage operations, senior systems technician. Why did he leave? He didn't leave. He was terminated 8 months ago. Eleanor looked down at the scarf. For what the file says, insubordination and failure to support management direction. Any safety violations, no attendance problems. No previous discipline. One written warning issued shortly before termination for what refusing to sign a commissioning report. Eleanor felt a memory return. Months earlier, Nathan had mentioned a technician whose name appeared in a dispute over a new cold storage facility. He had said the man might have been punished for refusing to approve something. Nathan was already sick. A nurse had entered the room and the conversation ended. Eleanor had never asked about it again. Who signed the termination? Claire hesitated. Julian Cross. Julian was Eleanor's nephew. He had become acting chief executive after Nathan entered the hospital. Since the funeral, he had called daily, asking when she would approve the transfer of voting authority. Pull the full file, Eleanor said. I may need authorization from operations. You have mine. The next morning, Julian Cross entered his office on the 32nd floor of Silver Pines. Denver headquarters. He was 47, perfectly dressed. and known for making people feel as though their job depended on every sentence they spoke, his assistant told him. Legal had requested records related to Lucas Reed. Julian stopped walking. Why? She didn't say who made the request. Claire Hayes. Julian closed his office door. 8 months earlier, Owen had delayed the opening of a regional cold storage facility by refusing to sign the final report. The project was behind schedule. Vendors were threatening penalties. Investors had been promised an opening date. Lucas had said the temperature data was not stable enough to prove the system would perform under a full load. Julian had called it excessive caution. When Lucas refused to soften his conclusion, Julian removed him from the project, then from the company. Julian had considered the matter finished until now. He called Eleanor. She answered on the 5th ring. Aunt B, I heard you went to Fort Collins yesterday. I did. You should have told security. I had Arthur. You haven't been eating. It wasn't safe. The concern in his voice was smooth and practiced. I met Lucas Reed, she said. Silence that explains the legal request. Tell me about him. He was a resentful former employee who refused to follow the chain of command. He recognized a refrigeration failure from across a restaurant. That doesn't change what happened. What did happen? He delayed a major project and undermined leadership in front of contractors. What instruction did he refuse? To revise an unnecessarily alarming report. Was the report wrong? It was incomplete. That is not what I asked. Aunt B, you're grieving. Bishop saw you in a vulnerable condition and attached himself to you. He did not know my name. He says that he shared the only meal he could afford with me. That kind of gesture creates emotional leverage. His daughter gave me her scarf. Children can be persuasive, I asked. Eleanor closed her eyes. I want the full file. You have people for that, yes. They are already working. She ended the call. That evening, Lucas was replacing a washing machine drain pump in the basement of an apartment when his phone rang. Mr. Bishop. Yes. This is Eleanor Vance. He sat back on his heels. Did the scarf make it home? It did. It's the warmest thing in my house. Lucas waited. The contractor confirmed about the refrigerator, she said. I'm glad they caught it. I also learned you worked for Silver Pine. His hand tightened around the phone. I did? Why didn't you tell me you were eating breakfast? That is not an answer. It's the answer I have. Eleanor remained quiet. Lucas wiped grease from his fingers with a rag. I didn't help you because of your company. I didn't know it was your company until your driver walked in. And after you knew, I wasn't going to discuss my personal file in front of my daughter. I would like to hear what happened with your lawyer present, yes. At your headquarters. At Claire Hayes' office in Fort Collins. Neutral location, the meeting will be documented. Lucas considered it. He had spent 8 months avoiding Silver Pine, avoiding former coworkers, avoiding the building where security had watched him pack 13 years of his life into a cardboard box. What do you want from me? He asked. The truth. And if it embarrasses your company, then the company should be embarrassed. Lucas looked at the broken pump on the floor. He thought about Chloe asking whether they would need to move again. He thought about the applications, asked whether he had ever been fired for cause. I'll be there 2 days later. Lucas entered Claire Hayes' office, wearing his cleanest work shirt. Eleanor was already seated at the conference table. Chloe's scarf lay folded beside her. Claire sat across from them with a laptop and a recorder. This is a fact-finding meeting. Claire said it is not a job offer, a settlement or a promise of corrective action. Lucas nodded. I understand. Claire reviewed his employment history. 13 years, no safety violations. Strong performance reviews. Promoted twice. Then came the North Range Cold Storage Project. A subcontractor had installed lower-cost components instead of the models named in the design. Lucas did not claim the replacements were automatically dangerous. His objection was simpler. The test results did not prove the system could hold stable temperatures under a full operating load. What did you recommend? Claire asked. Use the specified components or repeat the full test for 72 hours. What was Julian's response? He said the facility had an opening date, and I was turning an engineering question into a performance, and I understood the deadline. Lucas looked at Claire. I also understood my name would be on the certification. Claire opened a scanned report. This is the final document in your personal file. Lucas read the conclusion. That isn't my... How is it different? I wrote that the stability data was insufficient. This says the variation was within expected conditions. Did you make that change? No. Did you authorize it? No. Eleanor's face went still. What happened after you refused to sign? She asked. I was removed from the project. 2 weeks later, I was fired. Did you appeal yet? And I was told. Management had acted within its discretion. Eleanor studied him. What did it... Lucas looked away. That isn't part of the technical record. It is part of the truth. He hesitated. Then he told them he lost his health insurance. He sold his truck to stay current on rent. The termination language made other industrial employers cautious. He moved Chloe out of the duplex, where she had lived since her mother died, and into a smaller apartment. Does Chloe know why? Eleanor asked. She knows I changed jobs, that is all. She's 8. Lucas leaned back. I wasn't going to turn my daughter into the audience for a fight between adults. Claire stopped the recorder. I need to search Nathan's archived review files. Eleanor's breath caught at her son's name. Why? Before he entered the hospital, Nathan asked legal to preserve records connected to contractor substitutions and maintenance reductions. His review was never finished. The archive was found the following morning. Inside were Owen's original test data, photographs of the substituted parts, and an email from Julian. The language needs to reflect business judgment, not technician anxiety. Adjust the conclusion and keep us on schedule. Claire also found a short note from Nathan. Bishop's termination requires independent review. The technical record does not support the personnel conclusion. Eleanor read it twice. Her son had not finished the investigation, but he had seen enough to question what the company had done. The board was scheduled to consider Julian's permanent appointment. On Monday, Eleanor looked at Claire. They received this before they vote. Julian learned about the archive before the weekend. On Saturday morning, he met privately with Victor in the cafe office. Victor had already received written notice that her treatment of Eleanor was under review. She was frightened and ashamed. Julian placed a draft statement on her desk. This gives legal the full context. Victor read it. The state Lucas had interfered with company equipment, disrupted service, and used the incident to approach Eleanor. That isn't what happened. You told him not to touch the case. He didn't touch it. He influenced staff. He told Hannah to check the temperature. And food was removed because of him. The contractor said the case was failing. Julian leaned closer. The board will be deciding whether your judgment can still be trusted. A complete statement could help them understand the pressure you were under. Victor looked at the paper. It was not a direct threat. It did not need to be. I need time, she said. You do not have much. He left the statement on her desk. On Sunday, Claire reviewed the cafe footage. The images were clear. Lucas never touched the cake. Victor silenced the alarm. Hannah performed the temperature check. Employees moved the food. After the reading confirmed the problem. The footage also showed Eleanor sitting with Lucas and Chloe before Arthur revealed her identity. When Claire interviewed Victor, the manager began by repeating Julian's version. Halfway through, she stopped. He wanted me to make Bishop sound dangerous. Did he threaten you? Claire asked. Not directly. What did he say? That the board would decide whether my judgment could still be trusted. Victor pushed the draft statement across the table. I was wrong about Mrs. Kessler. I'm not signing another wrong thing to protect myself. Monday's board meeting began at 9. It had originally been scheduled to discuss Julian Cross's appointment as permanent chief executive. Instead, Claire opened with a motion to revise the agenda. Julian sat at the far end of the table. Eleanor sat at the center. For the first time since Nathan's funeral, she wore something other than black. Chloe's yellow scarf rested around her neck. Claire presented the evidence in order. Owen's original test data, the altered conclusion, Julian's email, the disciplinary action that began after Lucas refused to sign, Nathan's note, the cafe footage, Victor's draft statement, and her account of Julian's pressure. Julian remained controlled. This is being framed without operational context. He said the facility opened successfully. The system was adjusted. No product was lost. No one was injured. A board member named Samuel Sterling leaned forward. Was the system adjusted before or after? Bishop refused to certify it. Julian paused after additional testing. Then his objection was valid. His concern was addressed after he was removed. Julian's jaw tightened. He was not terminated for raising a concern. He was terminated for how he raised it. Samuel gestured toward Owen. Lucas had been invited only to answer technical questions. He wore the same clean work shirt from the meeting in Fort Collins. Mr. Bishop, was the original system proven unsafe? No. Was it proven stable, under full operating? No. What did you refuse to sign? A statement saying the data showed stable operation. Why? Because it didn't. Julian turned toward him. You could have respected the chain of command. I used the appeal process. You challenged executive judgment in front of contractors. I answered a commissioning question in front of the people performing the commissioning. You delayed a $9 million facility. The system delayed the facility. The room fell silent. Julian's face hardened. You always believed your technical opinion outweighed the needs of the company. Lucas looked at him, refusing to certify something unproven. Wasn't disloyalty, he paused. It was the job. Claire displayed the draft statement Julian had given Victor. This was created after legal reopened Mr. Bishop's file. Julian glanced toward the door. Victor misunderstood my request. Did you ask her to state that Owen interfered with the equipment? Claire asked. I asked for a complete account. Did you review the footage first? No. Did you suggest her employment depended on how the board viewed her judgment? Julian did not answer. Eleanor finally spoke. You told me Lucas used my grief to attach himself to me. I was protecting you, no. Her voice was quiet. You were protecting the story you had already chosen. Julian leaned forward. Aunt B, you met a former employee while you were grieving. You are allowing one breakfast to influence corporate governance. Eleanor touched the yellow scarf. The breakfast did not create the evidence. She looked at Nathan's note on the screen. It made me willing to see it. The board entered executive session. Lucas waited in an empty conference room. He did not know whether his record would be corrected. He did not know whether the company would offer anything beyond regret. His phone vibrated. A message from Chloe appeared on the screen. Did the truth win? Yet Lucas stared at the words. Then he typed, They're still listening. 3 minutes later, Claire entered the board. Has suspended Julian from all executive authority, pending an independent investigation. Lucas nodded slowly. What about the CEO appointment? Removed from consideration in my file. Your termination is now listed as disputed, pending final review. Compensation and benefits will be evaluated. After the investigation, Lucas looked at her. That isn't the same as clearing my name. No, Claire said. It is the beginning. 6 weeks later, the independent investigation confirmed that Julian interfered with technical reporting, retaliated against Owen, concealed contract substitutions from the board, and pressured Victor to provide a misleading statement. The board terminated his employment. He lost his succession bonus and any chance of becoming chief executive. His remaining financial and contractual issues were transferred to outside counsel for review. Owen's personnel record was formally corrected. Silverpine acknowledged that his objection had been valid and that his dismissal had been retaliatory. A negotiated agreement restored his lost compensation, benefits, and retirement contributions. Eleanor offered him a senior executive position. Lucas declined it. He did not want gratitude to place him in a role he had not earned. Instead, he accepted a 30-day independent assessment contract. He reviewed maintenance records at 3 facilities and presented his recommendations to a hiring panel that included no member of Eleanor's family. At the end of that process, Silverpine offered him a position suited to his experience. Regional Maintenance Integrity Supervisor. It did not make him rich. It gave him stable hours, health insurance for Chloe, and work that allowed him to sign his own without compromising what it meant. Victor also faced consequences. She received a formal warning, lost her management duties during retraining, and was required to complete a review on treatment and food safety procedures. Julian had pressured her, but he had not judged Eleanor by her coat. That choice had been hers. She cooperated with the investigation and apologized, without asking for immediate forgiveness. On Julian's final day at Silver Pine, he returned his access card and collected the last of his files. Lucas was leaving Claire's office when they met in the corridor. Julian looked older without the authority he had spent years trying to secure. For a moment, neither man spoke. Then Julian said, "I thought you were trying to embarrass me." "I was trying not to sign a false report." "I know that now," Lucas waited. Julian glanced toward the closed boardroom doors. "The person I treated like an obstacle was the person protecting the company." Owen's expression did not change. "Knowing it doesn't repair it, no." "What you do next might." Julian nodded. He did not ask for his job back or demand forgiveness. He continued cooperating with the audit and surrendered the records investigators requested. Eleanor slowly returned to public life. The grief did not disappear. She still woke some mornings, reaching for the phone, before remembering Nathan would never call. But she began visiting Lucas and Chloe, at first only for dinner. Then for Chloe's school music program. Then for a Saturday science fair, where Chloe built a cardboard model of a refrigerated truck, and proudly announced that warm milk was bad and also gross. Eleanor laughed harder than anyone in the room. One evening, she sat at Owen's kitchen table, repairing a loose seam in the yellow scarf. "Grandma B, you missed a spot." Chloe said. The room became quiet. Chloe looked up. "Is that okay?" Eleanor's hand stopped moving. "Yes," she whispered. "That is very okay." Silver Pine restored the community meal program Nathan had once supported. Customers experiencing hardship could request food discreetly. No one had to explain their situation in front of a crowded room. No one was filmed for advertising. No employee was allowed to turn a person's hunger into publicity. A small brass bowl was placed near the register. At every Copper Lantern Cafe, customers could contribute privately, and Silver Pine matched the donations each month. The first bowl was installed at the Fort Collins location several months after the morning that changed all three of their lives. Lucas, Chloe, and Eleanor returned to the cafe. The wind outside was sharp, but the sky was clear. Victor greeted them at the door. "Good morning, Mrs. Richard." "Good morning, Victor." Victor looked at Lucas, Mr. Bishop, then at Chloe. "I like your scarf." Chloe smiled. "It's warm." They sat at table 7. Lucas ordered 3 full breakfasts. Blueberry pancakes for Eleanor, eggs and toast for Chloe, coffee and a skillet for himself. When the food arrived, Chloe looked at the portions and grinned. "This is way more than last time." Lucas nodded. "Things are better." Chloe glanced toward the brass community bowl near the register. A folded card beside it read, "No one should have to prove they deserve a warm meal." She slipped out of the booth and returned, carrying an empty bowl. Lucas raised an eyebrow. "What's that for?" Chloe placed it in the center of the table. "In case somebody needs it." Eleanor touched the yellow scarf around her shoulders. The same scarf a little girl had given her when no one knew her name. A few minutes later, an older man entered alone. His coat was thin. His hands were red from the cold. He stood near the register studying the prices. Without sitting down, Chloe looked at Owen. Lucas looked at Eleanor. Eleanor lifted the empty bowl. Then she waved the man toward table 7.